Hi everybody, it's Jack Graham again with another recording today for my YouTube channel. And thank you all for taking some time to listen. I hope you enjoy it. Today we're going to talk about some jazz, but you know, I told somebody I was going to pick out my 10 favorite jazz records of all time, and I tried to do that, and I will do that. But boy, I had a hard time. There's just so many. But what I did do is I picked out a bunch of recordings that either mean a lot to me from memories growing up, or just great recordings. Probably both is a better way to say that. Great music and some things that have some stories that I remember when I hear this stuff, and I'll try to explain a little bit of that. So let's just start. I kind of put these, I think, in some chronological order. I do have a lot of CDs. I do have a lot of vinyl. Yeah, I think vinyl sounds better for the most part. There are some things that sound better on CD. Marginally. But there's a lot more music that I own on CD. I have a lot of vinyl, nowhere near what some of the other folks here doing YouTube channels have. I have a lot of records, but I don't have tens of thousands like some of these folks do, which is fine. But I have some CDs, and I have vinyl, and I listen to the music, and that's what I enjoy. The bottom line is the music. If the sound is great, that's even a plus. But let's talk about the music. I think I have these kind of in chronological order. One of the first recordings I ever owned, and I still, in fact, I listened to it a couple nights ago, is a recording with Blue Mitchel. Blue Mitchel's a trumpet player, great player, very underrated player. There's a lot of underrated players, a lot of underrated trumpet players, overshadowed sometimes by, you know, the likes of Miles Davis. I love Miles. But, you know, these folks are just, you know, maybe a little overshadowed by Miles, and don't get the notoriety that they should. This recording was made in 1964, and it's called The Thing to Do on Blue Note Records. I believe it was done in July 30th of 1964 in Englewood, which is, you know, a bicycle ride from where I used to live. I can remember riding up to Van Gelder's and just to watch these guys come out of the studio. But I was about 13 or so, 14. A little bit different childhood maybe than some people, but yeah, someday I'll tell you the story of how I got into jazz. But Blue Mitchel on trumpet, Junior Cook on tenor, the young Chick Corea, about 22 on this, 22 years old, G. Taylor, and Aloysius Foster, better known as Al Foster, on drums. Great tunes, really nice, some swing, a couple ballads, some just nice, easy groove tunes on here. It's a great recording. Again, these CDs, you can find used CDs around relatively cheap, although the price is going up on these too. Go figure. But The Thing to Do, Blue Mitchel, just a great choice of programming on here. Really a great recording. Underrated. Perhaps another underrated trumpet player who, in my opinion, may be the greatest jazz trumpet player of all time. And I'm talking about Clifford Brown. Clifford Brown died when he was very young. Kind of, well, a lot of trumpet players did, Lee Morgan. But he died in a car accident with his pianist on here, Richie Powell, Bud Powell's brother, on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. I think Clifford was about 26 or 27 when that happened. But Clifford Brown, what a player. Flowing lines, accurate feeling, very clean player. I can only imagine what would have happened if he stayed around. You hear a little Clifford and Freddie Hubbard and Lee Morgan, but Clifford was just a unique player, a great player. He did a number of records on MRC. The one that everybody remembers is the one with Joyce Spring on it and Parisian Thoroughfare on MRC. That's with Harold Land. He's the tenor player on that. Harold Land left for Los Angeles and was replaced by a very young Sunny Rollins on this record. It's a great record. Again, Clifford, very underrated. This is done at Basin Street in about 1956. Great tunes, and Sunny Rollins plays great on here. And again, Max Roach on drums, Richie Powell, George Morrow on bass, and Sunny Rollins, young Sunny Rollins on tenor. I think they did 2 records together with this group, maybe 3, but I know of 2. Clifford Brown and Max Roach. I would look for all of them. Somewhere here I have a complete set of all their MRC recordings. So that's available too, I think, on Amazon. Just if you don't know about Clifford, please check it out. They're all good. Third is a recording by Gene Ammons. Back on Prestige. This was done in 1960 in Englewood. Again, it was a Prestige record, but it was done at Van Gelder's in Englewood, as many things were at the time. Rudy Van Gelder, as many of you know, was the master of masters, mastering and when Weinstock owned Prestige, I think he used Van Gelder almost exclusively. But at any rate, Boss Tenor, I think he did a number of recordings on Prestige. Unfortunately, Gene Ammons spent a lot of years in prison due to drugs. But what a great player. Tommy Flanagan, Doug Watkins, Art Taylor. Again, and Ray Barretto on congas. I remember when I was in, man, I had to be about maybe a sophomore in high school. I played in the Teaneck, New Jersey community band in the summer. We played in the park. And sitting next to me in the trumpet section was Ron Barretto, which is Ray Barretto's son. And I often think what Ron's doing these days. He was a good player. But Ray Barretto played conga and adds a lot to a lot of these records. Great tunes on here and very soulful. Gene Ammons had this really warm, deep, soulful sound. One of my favorite recordings, and one I had as a very young person. I had to sell a lot of my records when I moved to the West Coast. I needed the money. I wish I had them now. I had the original Prestige of this, but it's great music. Again, out on CD. You can find these on vinyl, and I'm going to buy a copy of this on vinyl if I can find a clean copy. It's just a great recording. Gene Ammons, Boss Tenor Prestige 7180. Great recording. The third I'd like to talk to you about is another Prestige, and this is with a young Donald Byrd and a young John Coltrane from 1957. This is prior to Coltrane joining Miles's group. But again, Art Taylor on drums, Aloysius Taylor on drums. Donald Byrd was I think was a really kind of again an underrated player during this period. He from Detroit. Great ideas, great player. And of course, Red Garland is on this, and I love Red Garland's playing. This is again a Prestige, back from November of 1957. Great sound though. Again, I bet on a clean copy on vinyl is really good. But this I bought it from someone through Discogs from Japan. You can see the labeling on here. Japanese CDs are made better. I mean, they just sound better than most of the CDs here that are made in America. They just sound a lot better, and that's why I always look for them. They are more expensive, but they do sound better. Soul Junction, Red Garland Quintet. Red Garland ended up joining Miles, and so did Coltrane. So, got two of the Miles' soon-to-be formed quintet on this record, Soul Junction. What's in the background here was one of the first records I ever owned with that Clifford Brown. In fact, I can remember there was a music store on Main Street in Hackensack, New Jersey, and I must have been 12, and I take the bus from the town I lived in, one town over to Hackensack, and I remember buying this record. In fact, I still have it up here somewhere. Nat Adderley and the Big Sax Section. Nat Adderley, of course, is Cannonball Adderley's brother. He lived in Teaneck, New Jersey, on the other side of where I used to live. So many players lived in Teaneck. The Jones brothers, Elvin, Hank, and Thad lived there. J.G. Johnson lived there. You can go right down the list of the great jazz players who lived in Teaneck, because it was a 5-minute ride to the George Washington Bridge and then into New York City. But this is a really unique record. Nat Adderley is the featured soloist on here, but what's really cool about this record is that there's a big sax section, thus the name. Yusef Lateef on tenor, flute, oboe, Jimmy Heath, Charlie Rouse, a great player, Tate Houston on baritone, and of course you got Wynton Kelly, and Jim Hall plays great guitar on this record. He actually has a couple solos, just really plays great on here. Sam Jones on bass and Jimmy Cobb on drums. Jimmy Heath did the arrangements for this, as he did for many other prestige groups. But his writing for this sax section is great. Real full sound. It sounds like the sax section of a Basie band or an Ellington band, featuring Nat Adderley, and of course Cannonball's on this. When Nat recorded many of his recordings, he didn't. I think they had an agreement that Cannonball didn't play a whole lot on Nat's recordings, but he plays one solo on this, I believe, on the fourth cut called Tad, named after Tad Dameron, and plays great as always. But man, if you could find this is just a great record, and it's recorded really well. You know, and this was recorded in Plaza in New York City in 1960, September 15th. Nat Adderley and the Big Sax Section. The next cut is Tad. Maybe I'll turn it up. It's just amazing. Just really good stuff. One of the first records I ever owned. I remember my mother asking me, "Why don't you listen to the Beatles?" And I said, "There's not much going on there. I Want to Hold Your Hand. Yeah, yeah, yeah." I mean, come on. Compared to this. Anyhow, some newer things on CD. Then we'll talk about a couple vinyl records. Again, has a lot of meaning to me. Jack Sheldon. I did an episode on Jack back a couple videos ago, from Los Angeles, trumpet and vocals, with Russ Tompkins. Russ Tompkins is a pianist, and you could see Russ on the old Tonight Show. He was the pianist on that band. And he and Jack did a duo up at the Money Tree up at Toluca Lake, which is in the valley north of Los Angeles, on every Sunday night. And whenever I'd go to LA and I happened to be there, I'd always try to get in there on a Sunday night to see Jack. You never knew, I mean, his humor, you never knew what was going to come out. And you never knew who would walk in there. The great musicians from LA, studio guys, would all come in and hang out on Sunday night to hear Jack play and hear Jack sing. He did this record, and I have to tell you that piano and trumpet, man, it's not that easy to do. You have to listen to each other. There's no bass, no drums. It's just the two musicians. And man, Jack plays great. Russ Tompkins plays great. And just great tunes. On My Own, and this is on the Concord Jazz label. Recorded, I think, in the early 90s, 91 or 92. Great recording. Jack Sheldon, Russ Tompkins. What a great recording. Well, I'd love to hear this on great vinyl with a great master like Gray or Grundman. What a great recording. That's the Nat Adderley recording. And finally, the last CD I want to talk about is, you know, I wrote an email to Chad Kasem. I don't know him, but I wrote him an email 2 days ago. Haven't heard back from him. This is a Blue Note record reissued by Pat Martino, guitarist. And it's just maybe one of the most swinging records I have ever heard anywhere. And it was recorded live at Yoshi's, which is in San Francisco, back in the early 90s with Joey DeFrancisco. And I believe Billy Hart is on this. You know, it's white printing on yellow in the background. Billy Hart on drums. And man, at Pat's playing, you know, back in the early 80s, he had a brain tumor and lost all his memory. He had to learn how to replay. So he listened to all his records that he made prior and improved on his playing, but he had to learn how to replay the guitar. It's an amazing thing. But and he just passed, I think, about a year ago, less than a year ago. But this record, live at Yoshi's, you could still, I think you could still buy a copy on Amazon for probably used, I'm guessing, $12 or $15. I saw 2 copies on eBay for about $30 or $50. I saw a couple on Discogs for about the same price. This is a relatively hard recording to find. You may find 1 or 2 on Amazon if you're lucky. But live at Yoshi's, I'm going to tell you, it's one of the most swinging recordings you'll ever hear. Joey just plays unbelievable, and Billy Hart, he's like a metronome. Doesn't get in the way. It just this is an amazing record. I sent this email to Chad Kasem at Acoustic Sounds. I said, Chad, it's a Blue Note. Reissue this on vinyl. Man, and it's a good recording. It's a live recording, but it's really, really, really good. One of the best live recordings I've ever heard. Folks, if you don't do anything, get a hold of this. It's amazing. Live at Yoshi's on Blue Note. Joey DeFrancisco and Billy Hart. Amazing. Couple vinyls, just as an aside. Art Farmer, A Time and a Place. There was another Time and a Place recording issued prior to this, and I can't remember who did it. It might have been under Jimmy Heath's name. I'm not sure, but Jimmy Heath happens to be on this because A Time and a Place is Jimmy's tune. Again, one of the first records I ever owned. This was done, I forget, back, doesn't say on here, but back in the 60s. Art Farmer, great trumpet player and flugelhornist. Jimmy Heath. Coleman Walton, better known as Cedar Walton, on piano. Walter Booker and Mickey Roker on drums. This is a funny record. This was actually done in a studio, but they overdubbed a live audience for the recording, which I wish they didn't do, but they did. Columbia. When you listen to this, you'll hear the timing of the applause sometimes doesn't match with the beginning and the end of tunes. It's not done great. I just wish they left it off. Time and a Place, Columbia, CS 9449. Really, really great record. Art Farmer, great player. Great player. This is not new, but I picked this up on Discogs about 3 or 4 months ago. Again, it's Marty Paich. Marty Paich was a pianist, but he did a lot of arranging for a lot of people, Mel Torme and just a number of people. Might be known more as an arranger than a piano player. But this is a small band he put together. Mel Lewis is on this, Joe Mondragon on bass, Pete Condoli, Cotty Condoli's brother on trumpet, Buddy Childers on trumpet, great player, and Jack Sheldon again on trumpet. So you have 3 trumpets, you have a trombone, 2 trombones, French horn, and 4 saxes. So it's really a nice band and a real swinging band. Anything that Paich does is usually pretty good. He did a lot of the Art Peppers that are, by the way, coming. 2 of them are coming on within the next year in contemporary. If you go to the In Groove or Acoustic Set, any of the places online or your local record store, you're going to see them. There is going to be an Art Pepper on contemporary and mono coming on Record Store Day for another time. But this Marty Paich record is really good. It's on the Candid Stereo label. Good recording in Hollywood, and I think this was actually printed in Germany. I got this from a gentleman in Germany. I don't know if it was printed and who did the pressings here where it was done, but it's a good recording. Marty Paich big band, Picasso, any of the Marty Paich things are just great, recorded well. This was the second record that I ever owned, and again, I'm going to tell you how old I was well, you know what? This is done in 1963 and 1963, and some of the tunes go back to 1945. Something new and something old, but the recording was done in 1963. New tunes and old tunes, with Dizzy's great group, with James Moody, a great tenor player, Kenny Barron, young Kenny Barron, Kenneth Barron on here on piano, Christopher White, better known as Chris White on bass, and Rudy Collins, known as Rudolph Collins, on drums. This is an old Phillips record, a good recording. This is out on CD. You can find it, something old, something new. I owned this when I was 12 years old, 13 years old. Maybe 14, but it was one of the first records that I probably wore out 1 or 2 copies of this. Great tunes, some of Dizzy's best playing. James Moody plays great. This is my favorite band that Dizzy ever had on here. Small band. It's really a great recording. This is a monaural version on the old Phillips label. It's a pretty clean copy. This record has a lot of meaning to me, so it cost me a few dollars. But man, it's just one of my favorite records to this day. Something old, something new. One of my really this was a find. I didn't know about this, and I love Phil Woods' playing, and I saw this in the store, and it was $12, and I brought it home. Phil Woods Quartet Volume 1. They never did the Volume 2 that I know about, but this was his greatest band, small band that I think that he ever played with Goodwin and Mike Malello and Gilmore. But a really great recording. I think Bob Ludwig did the mastering on this, but I'm not sure. It was done in 1979 in Austin, Texas, in a recording studio down there. Just a great, Bob Ludwig was involved with this. He did the mastering. That's why it sounds good. But it's a really great recording, so much so that I found another copy somewhere in here, and I haven't opened it yet because I'm going to wear this one out. Great playing. Phil plays great. Long K. Betty, Blumdito, everything I love. Great tunes. Phil's theme. Great band, swinging group. Great recording. Just really good. Phil Woods Quartet, Volume 1. Chick Corea did 2 recordings of piano improvisations. Someday I think I'll do a discussion on Keith Jarrett and Chick Corea. I love both their playing. I kind of think Jarrett's a little more soulful, less worrying about technique and such, but Chick was a great player, and he made 2 improvisations records on UCM, Volume 1 and Volume 2. This is Volume 2. If you find these, you could probably find them relatively reasonable. Make sure you get a clean one though. That's not a new record. This has a label on here. It says, I bought this in Seattle a couple of years ago. I don't know where it came from originally, and I paid $20 for this, but I think it's probably about the going price. But a great playing on this. Very, you know, just you want to relax and just enjoy great piano playing. Volume 1 and Volume 2, they're both equally as good. Chick Corea on ECM. Relatively young. Real quick, 2 records that just showed up a couple days ago. We'll talk about one here today. I'll save the other one for another time. But again, a Blue Note, Kenny Burrell, Midnight Blue. No piano on here, but Stanley Turrentine's on this. Major Holly on bass, Bill English, and again, Ray Barretto on conga. The recording is simply amazing on this. Kevin Gray did a remaster on this. But this is a Blue Note reissue, I believe pressed at Palace in Germany. Really quiet. Again, Kenny Burrell, what a great player. Very soulful player. And just very clean. So many good guitar players, and Kenny Burrell is right up in that top 3 or 4. Great tunes. They stretch out a bit on this. This is available from In Groove or whoever you buy your stuff from. Again, an 8400 123 Blue Note reissue. Just a great record. I listened to this last night and was just, you know, blown away by how quiet it was. I had this a long time ago, and now I have it again. So anyhow, that's just a few things to talk about today. I try to do that top 10. I don't know if I could find that. It's pretty hard. So many good recordings, so many great players. But it'll be something to look forward to. Anyhow, thank you all, and we'll see you next time. And if you have any comments, leave a comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.